Hey guys, it's Jake here with eTrailer. Today I'm going to show you how to install, and we're going to go over a few details on the Roadmaster diode wiring kit on our 2022 Jeep Wagoneer. Diode wiring will allow your towed vehicle to receive the lighting signals from your RV so that people on the road know that you're making a turn or stopping. The reason why we recommend diode wiring is because the vehicle is not going to look any different as it did from factory. All the components that you're going to install will be behind the rear fascia. And with that being said, this is the first Wagoneer that we've installed a flat tow setup on. So we discovered that it's much easier just to remove the fascia in order to make your connections than it is to try to fight the wiring from the factory. If you remove the taillights like you're going to have to if you install this, you'll discover that the plug is only long enough on the vehicle side to be able to connect to the taillight. There's nowhere near enough room to make the connections to the diodes that you're going to need to make. So by removing the rear fascia, if you have the confidence to remove the front, the rear is going to be removed equally as simple as the front. So it's just a few bolts on either side, a couple across the bottom, and you can pull it off. Now when it comes to choosing the right diode kit for your vehicle, there's going to be a few different options and some differences in them. The differences are going to be whether or not the kit comes with your 6-pole connector. Some of them come with it, some of them don't. Some tow bars come with it, and some don't. The kit that we used in our installation is just the 4-pole kit because we already had the 6-pole from the owner of the vehicle. And then the final thing that's going to be a difference between the kits is going to be the umbilical cord and the type of it. The types that we have in front of us today are going to be your 4-pole umbilical cord. It's going to be a fully coiled cord, a straight cord, which will be if your tow bar has a spot for you to run the wiring through it. Your tow bar is going to hold all the wiring up so you don't have to worry about it. If you don't have a tow bar that has any attachment points on it at all, that is going to be your fully coiled, so that when connected to the motorhome and the vehicle, the coiled portion is going to stay up off the ground and be able to flex when you're making turns. Now, if you have a tow bar that has a short place to be able to attach the wire, the hybrid cable is probably going to be the one you want to go with. The straight portion of it's going to run through the tow bar or clip to the clips on it, and then the coiled portion will stretch to your motorhome to be able to make that connection. So really there's going to be a few different options you have here in order to get the right fit for your vehicle and your RV. To run our 4-pole wiring for our diode kit, we started off by tying it off to our base plate, ran it up and inside the engine compartment. We'll show you that in a little bit. And then we ran it back down. We came down along the firewall here. You should be able to see it up in there. Ran it along some existing wiring. You just want to be careful to keep it away from, maybe put it on the other side of this wiring because your exhaust is right here. But then we just ran it down, zip tied it along the way to some brackets, ran it along the gas tank. Again, zip tying it to existing wiring along the way, ran it up over our axle here. Just be sure to keep it away from this because this does move. Ran it up, and then now we're here at the back corner, which we're going to be able to run it up to the taillights to make our connections. So up here in our engine bay, we put a loop in our wiring so that we have more than enough space to be able to make our connections to our braking system. Now after we disconnected our taillights, we found out that the plug that's in the taillight itself that we're going to have to connect to is really, really short, and we can't make those connections. So this is the first Wagoneer that we've ever installed a wiring kit on. So we're going to take the rear fascia off or try to peel as much as we can back in order to show you how we end up making these connections. We'll start off, again, it's similar to the front. We have 4 bolts, it looks like, and then we'll pop this piece of trim off and then start peeling back the back like we did on the front. And we'll be repeating the same steps on both sides to remove it. And to access this bolt that's holding our rear fascia to the rest of our vehicle, we had to pull back this panel. We're going to slide a paper towel in between to give us a little bit of working space. We'll take a 10mm socket and remove this bolt. Next, we're going to remove our taillights. We'll start by removing this little black panel, and then we can pull our taillights out. So if you have a trim panel tool, or sometimes you can get a screwdriver with a little towel around it. There we go. Set that to the side, and then we'll need to get a Torx bit and take these screws out. This is going to be a T30 Torx bit to remove these two. And you want to pull kind of at an angle out towards the side of the vehicle. And we'll see our connection. Pop this little red tab up. And disconnect our wiring. Now you can use the same Torx bit that you use to remove your taillights to remove these little keepers. Take a 7mm socket and remove the smaller bolts at the top of the fascia. On the bottom, you'll have 4 10mm bolts that we'll also need to remove. Now we'll remove our rear fascia, just pulling slightly. It is definitely helpful to have an extra set of hands to do the other side, or at least help you hold it while you pull it off.
Pretty tight here.
We'll just set it aside in a safe place. Make sure you check for any wiring that you may have to disconnect. We have got a couple down here. There'll be another one on the passenger side. Now we can set it aside. If you follow this plug down, you'll see this stretch of wire here. Right about in here is where we're going to make our connections for our diodes. So we'll need to peel back some of this jacketing to test our wires and then make our connections. And with our jacketing stripped back, we can see the colors of the wires. And we've got our running lights on right now, so we can figure out which one of the circuits that is. We test the bottom, top left, top middle, and our top right. So we'll go ahead and turn the running lights off and see if that circuit goes dead. Now that we know the white wire with a gray stripe is going to be our running light signal, we tested out our brake signal, and that's the lower pin, the one that's all by itself, and that's going to be our yellow wire. We'll do the same test on the other side of the vehicle, and then we can start splicing into our wiring. And we ran our wiring up through this hole and then out through this other hole that will be behind the fascia. And we're going to take our wiring and cut it. And then we're going to have to make a jumper wire for the brown wire and the green wire to run over to the passenger side. For now, we'll split these up. We won't be using the white because we'll make our ground connection up at the front of the vehicle. We can peel the green off. We'll be using the yellow and brown. Our brown wire is going to be our running light signal, which we determined earlier is the top right wire. Cut it in half to give ourselves more than enough space to work. These wires are really small, so you want to strip back enough to be able to double it over, which is about an inch. So we'll twist it and then fold it in half to double it over. It just makes the wire end a little bit thicker. We'll take one of our blue spade connectors and crimp it down. We'll do the same on this one. When crimping these down, you want to be careful because those wires are smaller. It is possible to shear them off. When doing the running light signal on the driver's side, you'll get one larger yellow spade connector in your kit. We're going to connect the brown wire coming from our harness at the front, take a jumper wire and tie it in with this and run it over to the passenger side of the vehicle. Now we have our original wire that we stripped back, and we just ran a jumper wire, which is just an extra piece of our brown wire. Strip it back, twist these together, and we'll use that yellow spade connector for the two of them. Okay, now we're ready to make our connections to our diode. So we'll take the top. It's pretty easy to understand. The top, we'll have our lines coming in, so the brown wire will be coming from our motorhome through the vehicle and in. Connect that there. And then from our vehicle into the diode. Connect that there. And then out to our taillights on our vehicle. We're going to do the same process with our yellow wire. We have our second diode set up here. We have our signal coming in from the brake signal from our vehicle, the brake signal from our motorhome, and then we have it going into our taillight. And we did the same thing on the passenger side as we did on the driver, except for the green wire, the small green wire coming from our vehicle's wiring harness is going to be the brake signal on the passenger side. And here you see that brown jumper wire coming over from our running light signal into our diode. Now at this time, you can put your rear fascia back on your vehicle, put your taillights back in, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that our 6-pole connector on the front of our vehicle is working correctly before we button any of this back up, because we've already got it off anyway. That would be a pain to have to take it back off. Up in the engine bay, we like to make all our connections up here so that we have more than enough room to work. We don't have to make them inside the vehicle or underneath the vehicle. But we'll start with the 4-pole coming from our base plate up to here. And that is that loop that we made. You want to cut that in half, and then we put 3 heat shrink butt connectors on the green, yellow, and brown wire. The white wire, you'll want to make yourself a little tail wire off with a ring terminal. You get a couple in your kit, so you can use one of those. And then our white wire that you see connected here to the ground is going to be the white wire on our braking system. As for the rest of the wires, the yellow, brown, and greens, you have your yellow, brown, and green that continue on to the diodes at the back of the vehicle, and you have a yellow and green that go to your braking system. Well, if you can predict it, the yellow and greens, all 3 of them are going to get attached together, and then we'll just simply reattach the brown. You don't have to cut the brown. It's just, I went ahead and cut the whole harness so that it's easier to work with and you can get it up in front of you. So we'll start with reconnecting our brown wire. Take our green from our braking system, the green that goes back to the diodes, twist them together and make our connection. We're going to do the same for the yellow wire. And we'll wait till we make all these connections to heat shrink all of them. With our connections made in the engine bay, we can now tuck our wires away and go up to the front and make our connections to the 6-pole. When running your 4-pole down to your bumper, you want to be sure to give yourself more than enough room to be able to work and make these connections. Otherwise, it can be a real pain. So you can see here we've got more than enough space. We'll split these wires again. When attaching your wires, you want to slide your boot on first. I've forgotten to put it on before, and you have to take all the wires back off in order to get it in place. But what I did was I stripped back about a 1/2 inch of wire and I folded it over to give these screws a little bit more to bite onto. And you need to run the yellow to the left turn. The green to the right turn. The left turn will be labeled LT, the right turn will be labeled RT. The white one to ground, which will be GD. And then your brown wire is going to go to TM, and that is the marker lights, your side marker lights and your tail lights. Now that we have our 6-pole connected at the front, we can test out our taillights on our vehicle. You can use your motorhome for this, or like us, we're using a light box so that we can send the signal back as if it was a motorhome. We have our 7-pole umbilical cord with the 6-pole plugged into our wiring, and we can go through our signals. We have our taillights, left turn, brake lights, and right turn. Now that we know that our lights are working properly, we can, what we like to do is we like to cover the connections with some black silicone. This is just going to help to keep the connections protected and keep them from coming loose. Finally, you'll want to reinstall your rear fascia and your taillights, and at this time is a good time to install any other flat toe components that you have. Well guys, hopefully this overview and installation gives you the confidence to know whether or not this system is right for you in your 2022 Jeep Wagoneer.